Welcome back to EE Times TV. I'm Brian Fuller, Editor-in-Chief of EE Times, and we're at the Mentor Graphics Oxygen Bar because, as you all know, you can't live without oxygen. And somewhere in the Mentor marketing message, there's a connection between oxygen, revitalization, new tools, new tool flows, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to ask the Chairman and CEO, Wally Rhines, about that, because I think it's new to him. Anyway, you guys, as a company, have had an interesting 9-month stock run. It's ticked down a little bit. Give us a sense for what, obviously within legal constraints, the year holds for Mentor, first of all, in the EDA business.
Okay, so we just had an incredible quarter. Grew our bookings 15%. We had an incredible year last year, as did the whole industry, growing roughly 11%, but our bookings close to 20. For the rest of the year, we've guided continued growth and a total year of approximately 7 to 8%. We've raised guidance every quarter for the last 7 quarters, and I think the whole industry is seeing a healthy period driven by strong demand from semiconductor companies as well as other industries.
Do you see it at the industry level? Do you see it as a cyclical uptick? Because the history of this industry is consolidation, market share battles, a little bit of growth, everybody's happy, goes down, more consolidation, more market share battles.
So the EDA industry, of course, is out of cycle with semiconductors. The increase in the EDA market almost always comes after an upturn in semiconductors and stays up after the downturn. The thing that's been sort of unique this time is semiconductor companies are in sort of a prolonged upswing since the great crash of 2000. And they've had inventory corrections in 2004 and 2006, but the overall trend has been strong. And while the first half of this year, the second half of last year, had some inventory correction in it, most of the semiconductor companies are expecting a strong second half and a good 2008.
So that bodes well. Let's talk a little bit about the pie, and not about dessert, but about the market pie. There's a lot of talk about expanding the market pie for EDA. Mentor as a company has actively done some of that expansion into the automotive business, for instance, into some areas of design not typically associated with engineering design. Do you think the industry is going to follow suit? Does it have the mindset to expand that pie?
Well, we pride ourselves on what we call doing what other people are not doing. That's how we started our focus over 10 years ago in the automotive market, which has been quite successful. In fact, this last quarter was a large share of our growth. It's why we went into embedded software. It's why we went into design for manufacturing and a lot of wafer fab related things. And I do think others will, in fact, join in the fun. But I think that's good. Markets become credible as there are multiple suppliers. And I think EDA needs to grow beyond, needs to attack markets that we haven't served before, because we can't grow just from the basic design flow for integrated circuits and printed circuit boards.
There was a panel earlier this week in which somebody said there hasn't been an EDA IPO in 6 years. And that used to be sort of the crucible, the churn, the innovative churn in this industry. Go off, start a company, get acquired, or go IPO, and we haven't seen that. What's, in your opinion, the nature of the state of innovation in EDA if there isn't that cash out?
So you mentioned IPO, but remember, there have been a lot of companies acquired during this period. And if you look at the actual money invested in EDA startups, it's at a run rate now substantially higher than it was in the mid-90s. So we did indeed have a big bubble in 99, 2000, 2001, and we've come off that bubble, but we have stabilized in a range that still is creating a lot of companies, that is sustaining hundreds of small companies. It's still an industry where it's relatively easy to get started. It doesn't require that much money to do an EDA startup, and there is a real alternative of cash out by being acquired without requiring an IPO, and IPOs have become a lot more difficult since regulatory effects made them more difficult.
Let's talk a little bit about trade shows, because you've seen them from, wearing both hats, the semiconductor hat and the EDA hat, over a long career, long and successful career. On the semiconductor side, we saw shows like Westcon spike up and then fade away. Design Automation Conference this year is in its 44th year. There's concern that on the exhibition side, not on the technical side, but on the exhibition side, it holds less and less of a value for vendors such as yourself in acquiring new customers. What's your view of the future of DAC?
So there are very few industry trade shows that can show a 44-year track record like DAC. I view DAC as important for really two reasons. One, it's an opportunity that we schedule around, to have meetings, to see the people we already know, work with the customers. A lot of our year is scheduled around completing things by DAC, getting products out by DAC, and doing other things. And it's the single biggest show. So I think it has long-term stability in that respect. The other part of DAC, which was so important early in the industry, is finding new customers, introducing people to your products. That's still very important for the newer companies and still has some importance for the established companies. And I think that was at its best in the DACs we had in the Bay Area when Free Monday attracted all those new younger designers. And I think as DAC goes back to being predominantly a San Francisco show, you'll see that attraction of new local designers who come in just for the day to, in fact, enhance the value of DAC overall and help propel it forward.
Interesting, good point. Do you have one of these in your office?
No, I actually don't.
Are you
in fact, I've never seen one until today.
Are you considering it now?
No, I don't think I will, but it's interesting. Yeah.
Well, on that note, we'll thank Wally Rhines for taking time to talk to us here on EE Times TV. Thanks, Wally.
Thank you, Brian.